Ladies and gentlemen, this is Karelos Eniziris and my channel grecochess. First, I'd like to thank my subscribers and my viewers for subscribing to my channel and viewing my videos. Now I'm going to present to you the game I had against my toughest opponent ever. The day was December 1st, 2023, and the YouTube streamer Nelson Lopez organized a tournament among his viewers. The rules were the following. The games were 3 minutes online, meaning every player had 3 minutes for all of their moves. And the tournament would consist of 9 rounds. Each player had to face 9 randomly selected opponents. You win, you get 1 point. You draw, you get half a point. You lose, you get 0 points. After the first 8 rounds, Nelson Lopez, the host, had 8 wins. He was guaranteed first place. He was well ahead of the second. Myself, I had 5 wins and 3 losses, a respectable score, 5 out of 8. But on the last 9th round, by a sheer coincidence, I had to face none other than Nelson Lopez himself. Now, let's look at what happened after I share my screen with you. And here we are. You're going to see the time remaining. 3:00 for Nelson, 3:00 for me, meaning 3 minutes, 0 seconds. That is at the very beginning. And the name of the tournament is Friday Swiss. What do the evaluation numbers mean? Meaning that at every point, the computer suggests the best 3 moves for the player whose turn is to play, and what would be the evaluation if the player selects this move. And also need to tell you that the game was broadcasted live by Nelson Lopez in his channel Chess Vibes, a channel, by the way, that is very instructive, entertaining, and I highly recommend. In the description, I'm going to share to you the link with the live broadcast, so you can watch Nelson's description of the tournament, the games he played, including the game against me. But here you're going to hear what I experienced, my experience of the game. And let's start move by move by move. Nelson starts with the e-pawn. I reply goes to e4, I reply e goes to e6. This is what's called the French defense. Since he moves the d-pawn to d4, I move my d-pawn to d5. His knight goes from b1 to c3. My knight goes from g8 to f6. Until now, it is well-established theory. Theory means it's been analyzed into exhaustion, and you can buy books and look at courses where they can tell you what happens if the game starts this way. He moves his bishop to g5 to pin my knight f6. Now my knight cannot move, otherwise I lose my queen. And if I don't move it and pawns started being exchanged, I may end up being at least a pawn down. And to avoid it, bishop goes to e7 and I cover the pin. My knight is not pinned any longer. He takes my knight, I take his bishop. And by doing so, I gain what is called the 2-bishop advantage. In general, it's better to have 2 bishops than a bishop and a knight, or 2 knights, because with 2 bishops, not only the far moving pieces, they can go from one end of the board to the other, but they cover all the light and the dark squares. Develops his knight, I castle. Develops his bishop, and I start taking the pawn before he started taking my pawns, and I end up at least a pawn behind. Takes it back, I develop my knight, and now he takes my bishop and I take his knight. So I don't have any longer the 2-bishop advantage. He moved his pawn to c3. Why? In order to defend his central pawn at d4. You see, before it was attacked twice by the knight, by my knight and by my queen. It was defended only once by his knight, but still I couldn't take it because, let's go and move back and see what would happen if. If he plays something irrelevant and I take it, takes in my queen, then his bishop goes to h7, checks, and then I lose my queen. That is why his pawn was not really under threat, but to avoid such possibility in the future, he moves his pawn from c2 to c3. I centralize my rook, goes to e8 and controls what's called the semi-open file, semi-open E file. Why is it called semi-open? Because there is pawn only from only my side, the black one. Castles, I push my pawn and we start exchanging. First the pawns, then the knights, and now the rooks. I love exchanges because the more we exchange, the nearer we go to an endgame that hopefully would be at least equal. And who knows, with a little bit of luck, I might even be ahead. Well, if too many pieces in the middle, then it is deep, deep theory, and he's much more experienced than me. Bishop goes to 5. Why? Let's go and move back. What would happen if I played something irrelevant? Let's say my pawn here. In that case, back rank checkmate. Queen goes to e8, and game is over before it even started. So here we go, and now we exchange bishops. And his queen goes to e7. That's a very strong move because queen on the 7th rank, first of all, it attacks all the pawns, especially two of them that see the b are unprotected. And if pawns would somehow disappear, then my king is stuck in the 8th rank and not get out. Usually you want to have a rook on the 7th rank, but if you have a queen and the queen is safe, it's even worse. I defend my c pawn. And now his rook goes to e1, and at this point I have to be careful again because he threatens again with back rank, but in two moves. Queen goes to e8, I take it, and then rook goes to e8, mate. But I'm not going to let it happen. Pawn goes to h6, and so if he does the same thing, king escapes to h7, and he has lost a queen for a rook, which of course he's not going to do. Pawn goes to h3, he mimics me. In the unlikely case I have a back rank check chance in the future, he has escape. Queen now goes to c2. His rook goes to d2, threatens my queen. So although my queen temporarily was on the 2nd rank, like he was on the 7th, not any longer. I must move my queen away from the 2nd rank. Go check to d1, king escapes to h2. Queen to a4 and attacks the a2 pawn. He defends it. Queen goes to b3. So if the rook would go away, I take the b2 pawn. But he does something else. His queen goes to d7. What does this mean? That's why you see now his advantage becomes much larger. It's not a significant 0 point something any longer. Why? Because first of all, he threatens my rook on c8 if I don't move it. And if I move it, I lose my c7 pawn. What can I do? They say the least evil. So my rook goes to f8, queen takes the c2 pawn, his advantage grows. My queen at least is centralized. It's at the center where it controls as many squares as possible, although I'm still a pawn behind. My queen goes to d5. Rook goes now to e7, which looks very nice because he has both queen and rook on the 7th rank. If my rook from f8 would move away, the f7 pawn, it's not yet lost because it's also protected by the queen, but potentially the f7 pawn could be lost, and then my g7 is under danger, and my king will not feel safe at all. But the computer did not like it. At this point, both of us have completed almost a minute over 3 minutes. He's down from 3 minutes to 2 minutes remaining time. I'm down to 2 minutes, 5 seconds. My queen now goes to d2 and threatens both the b2 and the f2 pawns. I believe that he should have taken the b pawn because one of his pawns is lost either way or other. No reason to defend, but instead he defended his f, goes to f3. I take the b pawn, and now we have the same material. In addition, I have what's called 2 pawn islands, and he has 3. What does this mean? It means that he has 1, 2, and 1, 3 group of pawns that are isolated from each other. I have only 2, 1 and 2, because these two A and B are connected. If queens and rooks would disappear and would go to the pawn ending, having as few islands as possible is an advantage. Not the main. The main, of course, is having a pawn ready to promote, and the second best is having more pawns. But if there is no promotion chance, at least no immediate promotion, and the number of pawns the same, it's better to have fewer pawn islands. Let's continue. He'll take the B pawn, I take the A. Still, we have the same number of pawns. And now both of us have 2 pawn islands, so I lose the small advantage I had before. Let's continue. He starts pushing the pawn. Both of us have one passed pawn, as it's called. He has the C, I have the A. And the theory says that passed pawns must be pushed as fast as possible towards, of course, promotion. That's the final goal. He would like to see his C pawn going to C8, become a queen, and I'd like my A pawn to go to A1 and become a queen. But easier said than done. Let's see what will happen. I push my pawn and, of course, 2 squares from A7 to A5. His problem is he cannot push the C pawn, because if he pushes to C5, my queen gets it, he loses it, and only me I have a passed pawn, and the advantage I'm going to have will be enormous. That's why first he puts his rook on C7. I push my pawn to A4. His pawn goes to C5. Now it's well protected. My pawn cannot be pushed because the queen is blocking its way, so that's why my queen goes to C3. Good thing that my pawn was not attacked at that point, so I could put my queen anywhere I wanted. I put it a square that will both protect the next square, the A3, and also attack the C5. His pawn now moves to C6, and he believes that things look great for him because his pawn is much nearer promotion than mine. My rook is stuck on F8. I'll be completely lost if I move it because he'll take the F7 and will not even need to go to the ending. His pawn is, I said, only 2 squares away from promotion. Mine is 3. He was expecting if I push it, and somehow we both pushed, then we would, he might promote before me. But at that point, of course, neither Nilsson nor I had access to the computer evaluation, so we had no idea that it was a 0.00. By that point, I saw the biggest opportunity of my life. I knew how I would get a draw, and drawing against a national master 700 points rated above you is a once-in-a-life opportunity, and I was not going to let it pass. In addition, if I did not take the draw now, what was going to happen is the game would be decided on who would make the biggest mistake, and with him more experience, the odds were that I would do the biggest mistake. So I continued with the following combination. Queen goes to E5 check, king goes to G1, queen to E1 check, king to H2, queen to E5 check, king to H1 now, and queen to E1 draw. Why is the draw? Because the same position had happened 3 times. Move number 31, move number 33, move number 35, and in both cases, it was his turn to move. And believe it or not, my toughest challenger ever, National Master Nelson Lopez, that's what the letters NM mean, National Master, he ended up, the game with him ended up as the biggest success, the biggest upset of my chess career. Now let's see what happened in the overall tournament. You're going to see that Nelson Lopez, after 9 games, he had 8 wins and 1 draw. The only draw was against me, the only time he could have won. 8.5 points, first place. Just Life got 7 points with a better tie-breaking score. This is a tie-breaking score. Alin Popescu third place with 7, and out of 66 players that participated, I ended up with a respectable 13th place, 5.5 points. 5 wins, 3 losses, and a draw against the winner Nelson Lopez, who won, you see the gold medal. The game was broadcasted live on the internet, and in the description I'm going to share with you the link. You're going to see both Nilsson's description and, of course, how the audience reacted with the various comments. And let's go now to the review of the game. analyzing game. Let's see how the game review. What did the computer of chess.com think about the overall game? You see that the game was even most of the time. For a little while he was ahead when he had the extra pawn. I had better accuracy than him, 93.7, which is extremely rare for me. He had 93.4. And believe it or not, yes, Taylor. Chess.com believes that I played as if my rating was 2600, which, if it was true, I would be among the top 100 players in the world and I would be a grandmaster. Well, his was a nice 2350 ahead of his actual one. And by the way, this was a 3-minute game. It is not so easy to play well when you have a limited amount of time. And about individual moves, none of us had a brilliant. I had two great, he had one. I had 14 best, he had 9. I had 3 inaccuracies, he had 1. Both of us made 1 mistake, no misses or blunders. And let's see now how much time was left. When the game was over, he had 43 seconds, meaning he had played all his moves in 2 minutes 17 seconds. And I had 1 minute 23 seconds, meaning I had used 1 minute and 37 seconds. This for a total of 35 moves. Let's do the math now. He used approximately 4 seconds per move. And I used how much? I used about 2 seconds and 3/4 of a second for every move. And that concludes my game against my toughest opponent, which, as I mentioned before, ended up being my biggest success ever, the highest rated player I've been able to survive and not lose. Once again, my opponent was Nelson Lopez, the host of the chess YouTube channel, Chess Vibes. It's very entertaining, very instructive, educational. I highly recommend it. But thanks for watching for today. We're going to be again soon with more videos. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Karelas and Greco Chess. Goodbye.